Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Nixle Community Engagement Overview demo webinar featuring the new Nixle mobile application Engage Bridge. As a reminder, for today's webinar, we're scheduled for approximately a half hour. For the agenda, we'll be going through the full Nixle solution overview from social integrations, the simple resident and event management opt-in, through our partnerships. And Scott will also be covering a couple different use cases, including a couple of them that highlight the importance of social. And of course, we'll be doing a full demonstration of Nixle and Nixle Engage Bridge, the new mobile app. Followed by that, we will open it up to the audience for a Q&A. And as a reminder, if any of you have questions during the webinar, you can do so by going to the drop-down on your GoToWebinar panel, to the questions drop-down, and submitting your questions to all panelists. So now I'm going to introduce our first speaker, our only speaker, Scott Benoit. Scott Benoit is currently Nixle's and Everbridge's Community Engagement Senior Director of Product Management. He's a certified Scrum product owner. His responsibilities at Everbridge and Nixle include acting as product owner for Nixle's full suite of SaaS products, both web-based and native mobile apps, user experience, both specifications and design, creative direction, and delivering and involving all teams during a product launch. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Scott. Scott, when you're ready, you may begin.
Great, thanks, Mike. All right. Getting a little bit of an echo, but good morning or good afternoon, everyone. So as Mike mentioned, I will be running through a slide deck to start, and then I will be jumping over to the web interface for Nixle. And then from there, I will actually be live demoing the Engage Bridge mobile application that we will be releasing in about 3 weeks' time. So I'm very excited to kind of walk everyone through this. I know we have about a half hour and a lot to cover, so I'd love to just jump right in and kind of talk about community engagement at a very high level. So the idea is, when Nixle started, we wanted a way for local municipalities, local agencies to be able to quickly connect with their residents. So, of course, we wanted agencies to be able to send those high-priority emergency-type messages, but agencies really wanted a way to connect more on a daily or weekly basis. So, of course, there is a high-priority type of notification, but Nixle really kind of excelled in allowing agencies to have that daily and weekly communication. And fast forward to the acquisition by Everbridge in late 2014, it was a really great and synergistic relationship and acquisition, because Everbridge really focuses on state level and county level emergency managers who really want to send that emergency out, reach as many people as possible in times of an emergency. Nixle continues to really thrive in the local and municipal space, where, again, that daily type of communication between agencies and residents exist. And, one way that we've seen agencies really excel at getting people into the system is kind of highlighted here, what we call the community engagement value cycle. But the idea is pretty simple. As all of these tools and social networks kind of emerge, and your residents are slowly coming on board, or maybe they're already on Twitter or Facebook, the idea is that Nixle allows you to very easily tap into these other social networks. Additionally, we maintain our own sort of social network where people can directly opt in to your notifications via SMS or email. So every time you publish, we see this wheel here spin, right? So the more you publish, the more community content that you're putting out there, and it's branded from your agency. So residents see this, they know it's coming from your agency. They might see it on Facebook, they might see it on Twitter, they might see it on Nixle. But the idea is the more content that goes out there, the more likely it is for your residents to share that to their social networks, It drives exposure to your brand. It makes residents want to opt in to receive notifications directly from you. And that's really what Nixle provides, a direct conduit between you and your residents. So just to give you an idea of the combined Everbridge and Nixle footprint, so these are the Everbridge agencies, and when you layer on top of that the Nixle agencies, you can see that we do cover a very, very large portion of the country. And this is actually really important when you consider the registration method that we have at Nixle. And it is fairly unique. So we do want to make it as easy as possible for residents to opt in. Obviously, one half of the system allows you to send those messages, but almost equally as important is creating a system that makes it very easy for residents to opt into your messages, right? Without that opt-in base, the messaging doesn't mean anything. So we want to make it very, very easy to get people into your opt-in base. And again, the tactics that we have here are fairly unique. So particularly this one. So residents can actually text their zip code to 888-777, and so this will just give you a little bit of an illustration of how that occurs. And this is all over SMS. So by texting their zip code to Nixle's dedicated short code, so 888-777 essentially just acts as a short phone number. And you can actually try this right now if anyone has their mobile phone handy. You can text your zip code to 888-777. And what happens here is you're not just signing up for one agency. You're signing up for all agencies that service that zip code. So just as an example, I live in 91016 in Southern California. If I was to text my zip code to 888-777, I've now opted into my local police department, my local fire department, the neighboring police department, which happens to overlap the zip code. And then at the higher level, at the county level, the LA County Sheriff can also target me because they also have jurisdiction over this zip code. So you can see from a resident's perspective, it's a great way. One opt-in results in subscriptions to 4 or 5, potentially even more agencies that are all serving their local area. And this is actually a real-life example. All of these agencies are using Nixle around my house, and it's as a resident, I can truly say it's a great source of public safety information. And equally important from an agency's perspective, if, let's say, there are 4 agencies and they have access to the same 1,000 users. Now imagine if a 5th agency or a 6th agency came on board tomorrow. They would not be starting with 0 users. They would be starting with this same group of 1,000 opt-ins. Because again, that resident has essentially indicated to us by opting in that they want to receive all public safety information for their zip code. So this is what we call the network effect, but it just makes sure that when you start with the Nixle system, you're not starting from users 0. You're starting with a built-in group of users. And now if we go back to kind of that map view of the Nixle footprint across the country, that's really important because with all of those agencies publishing, that means that opt-in bases are growing all over the country, and they are there essentially waiting to receive messages. So I would definitely urge you to reach out to a Nixle account executive and just find out how many people are already opted in your community. You might be surprised. It could be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. So it's always great to see when agencies kind of discover that they have a large group of opt-in users waiting to receive their messages. So that zip code functionality is again, that is over SMS, and something that's very similar but a little different. I'll go into the nuances here. Is what we call an event group and a mobile keyword. So with the zip code opt-in, residents, as I mentioned, are opting into a broad range of messages from different agencies. But as an agency, you can actually set up a keyword, a mobile keyword, for an event. and that mobile keyword will opt users into a specific group. And the primary use case here is around events. So if you, let's say, have a festival coming up in your local park, and maybe you're struggling to, figure out how to get a hold of people during the event. Maybe you have parking restrictions. Maybe there's a secondary venue in case there's bad weather that you want to direct people to. Whatever it is, you can very easily in Nixle set up a group. You can assign a mobile keyword to that group. And now, once you get the word out to your residents, it's a very easy call to action to convey. It's text. So in the case of this example, text Jazz Festival to 888-777. Right? Now, from a resident's perspective, again, very easy. Text Jazz Festival to 888-777, but they are only signing up to this particular group. Right? So this is not the same as the zip code opt-in where there's multiple agencies that they're opting into. They're just opting into your group. They want to stay updated about the Jazz Festival. So again, very, very easy not only to set up the group, but for residents to actually opt in. And just to give you an example, and there's a lot of use cases here, but you can imagine if you have a public transit system or there's some sort of gathering or some sort of marathon, whatever it is, you can create a keyword, and we work with you we have a best practice guide for how to get that call to action in front of your residents. But the idea is whatever the event, mobile keywords and event groups are a great way to manage and message those participants. So I'll talk about this very quickly because I would like to go into the actual system, do a little bit of a live demo today. But one thing that we are really known for is our multimodal and ease of use. So multimodal basically means from one notification form, you are able to target multiple communication channels. Right? So those are indicated here. So you can send a text message, an email. We have a partnership with Google where you can send to their public alerting tool. We have an iPhone app for residents. We have web pages. You can send voice messages, Facebook, Twitter. We do integrate with iPause for the EAS and WIA channels. So you can see with the click of one button, this message can go to a lot of various channels. And this is just kind of a screenshot of the user interface, which I'll get to in the live demo portion. And our newest addition that I mentioned at the beginning is Engage Bridge. So this is really our mobile publishing app. So the idea is a lot of our users are out in the field, a lot of PIOs, emergency managers, needing to report on things to their opt-ins away from their desktop computers. Engage Bridge will allow them to very easily send a notification to their opt-ins. And again, I'll go through that in a little bit. And just so let's say you come on board, you have the system, you have a group of opt-ins. How do you message your residents? What kind of information should you be messaging? So the short answer is anything that your agency thinks would be of interest to your residents. Obviously, high priority messages such as missing children. In this case here, there was a gas leak that the police department wanted to notify their residents about. So, of course, high priority messages are a great use of Nixle. But I think more interestingly is the non-emergency messages are almost 90% of our message volume. So agencies are using this much more frequently, daily, weekly, to send out messages that are things such as traffic detours, parking restrictions, weather notifications. Maybe there's a neighborhood meeting coming up that they want their residents to attend. Right? So those are the kinds of messages that Nixle really allows for. Again, alerts, certainly, obviously incredibly important during those times of crisis, but residents are also interested in hearing from you more frequently. And just to highlight one recent case study, late last year, the Pope visited the city of Philadelphia, obviously with 1.5 million um, visitors anticipated over a weekend. The city was looking for ways to kind of manage the influx of visitors to the city. A lot of coordination across multiple groups within the city, obviously. But the idea was they wanted a way for residents to be able to opt in to receive information about this particular event. And we worked with the city. We came up with a plan. And our plan usually consists of a campaign before the event, right? Because you want to give residents and visitors time to sign up during the event. So what kind of messaging do residents, do opt-ins want to hear during the actual event? And then after the event, if a user is opted into one particular group, how do you encourage them to opt into additional information? So in working with the city, we set up the mobile keyword papal visit. And the city did a great job getting the word of mouth out there. They worked with local media. They were putting out messages on social media. They had printed materials scattered around the city that people were picking up to, look at the tourist destinations. So a lot of great kind of outreach went into this event, and ultimately what that led to was, in a very short amount of time, almost 11,500 residents opted in all over the SMS channel. So again, it really speaks to the ease of use. Residents very easily able to pull out their phone, text in that keyword. Now they have all joined a group because they want to hear information about the Pope's visit. The city knows this group of users is primarily interested in receiving this type of information. And just a few examples of the messages in the Joint Information Center that was set up for this event. But it warns of airport delays. It warns of weather implications. There were jumbotrons around the city where you could watch the event unfold. So all great examples of messaging that the city was sending out to these event group opt-ins. And then after the event, so this is a nice blend of the keyword, the mobile keyword functionality, and the zip code functionality. So remember, if I opt into a keyword, I'm just opted into one group for one agency. But by encouraging the residents at the end of the event to reply with their zip code, they're now opting into a much broader set of information, right? So it's a great way to retain that user, make sure that they stick around to receive other sorts of information after this event is over. So that actually concludes the slide portion of the presentation. So now I will jump right into the web interface and just give you kind of a very high-level overview of the system. So after logging in, dashboard screen, quick links, you can jump to key portions of the user interface. But I would like to actually just touch on the message center here. So just so you can see the form, you can see the notification page that agencies are using to send the messages out. So let me just scroll down first and just to show you that this is a pretty condensed form. Right? If you scroll down, this is everything. But the great thing here is as you are interacting with these different options, there are other options that become available, right? So we know that in the time of a crisis, sending this message out is obviously very important, and we want to make sure that you can do it as easily as possible. We also know that, as I mentioned, a vast majority of our messages kind of fall into this medium priority category. They are not critical weather emergencies or missing children. They are those kind of traffic detour type of messages. So we've really optimized this page for that particular workflow. So I can actually, if I select advisory, I can punch in an SMS message. I don't need to send an email message. I can target a group, press preview. Oh. So if I was to enter an SMS message, press preview, that's it. Now I get to preview the message and I can press send. So it's really that easy. So I've just essentially sent a medium priority message to 59 contacts. right? So very, very simple. Now, if I was to select alert, I do have some more information here, because if it's an alert, we want residents to be aware of exactly what's going on. So we do ask you to fill out the category. Is it law enforcement? Is it weather related? Is it transportation related? Right, and this is our CAP protocol. So we are CAP compliant. CAP is Common Alerting Protocol. It's really a standard that the federal government implemented to make sure that emergency communications all had the same kind of message components. So there's category, there's event, is it a traffic emergency? And then we actually pre-fill the severity, urgency, and certainty. And again, this is really to just make sure crystal clear your residents are receiving a red priority, high priority message. What are the details of that emergency? So after this is filled out, you can go in, you can fill out the SMS, you can fill out the email. We do offer HTML styling if you want to add some colors or change text weights or boldness, etc. Instructions. So once the residents receive this information, what should they do? Should they seek shelter? Should they call a phone number? What is it that you want them to do upon receiving this message? So this is a required field as well. Now you'll notice there are other options here. These are optional. So I can include an incident location. If this event is happening at a particular place, you can make sure that when that message reaches your residents, it will have a pin drop on the exact location where this is occurring. But again, this is optional. Maybe there's a particular contact within your agency that residents should be instructed to reach when they receive this message, so you can include contact information. Or maybe you want to include a voice message. Now, my demo account here does not have voice messaging enabled, but voice messaging is available with Nixle 360, which is one of our plans. And I think Mike will be following up after this with a little more of a detailed view into the packages that Nixle offers. But the idea is you can optionally select to send a voice message. We have 3 ways to get your message into the system. And iPause, again, if this account was configured with iPause, I could open this and I could choose to send it to WIA and EAS. So again, if you are a county level agency and are interested in iPause, I would encourage you to reach out, set up a full demo. We can go into both the voice and iPause components. So as I'm making my way down, the next thing I'm asked to do is select a group. Now, the Nixle Wire group, again, these are the users who have opted in over SMS by entering their zip code, right? So they've come into that general bucket of users, and these are people who have opted in at nixle.com. So they've actually signed up, they've put in their address, we know where they live, we can see that, hey, this user lives in a location that is serviced by your agency. Right? So again, if you were to, let's say, start with Nixle tomorrow, just by targeting the Nixle Wire, you would have a group of users waiting to receive your message. Right? In addition to that group, I can actually go in and set up additional groups, and I can go over the group creation process in a minute. But I have the ability to target all of these groups as well. Now, when it comes to geo-filtering, I can select a point and radius. So, maybe I want this radius to be 5 miles around a particular location. So I can enter my location here. I can set what radius it is. So now it's a half mile. You can go down to a quarter mile. And so it's just a way to geo-target this message. Additionally, I can punch in a zip code or a city, town, and target my message that way. Scheduled messages, so I can actually determine when I want this message to go out. Then we have a concept of expiration. So your message will go to a web page, and if you want that message to expire at a certain point, you can set that up here. So this is the notification form, and then the last thing I'll mention, disregard this thing. This is for admin users like myself. But as you're completing this form, you can also choose to send this to Twitter and to your Facebook account. Right? So again, from this one form, you have the ability to target I believe it's 11 notification channels. So from this one form. So very easy to use, very easy to target recipients. So I just jumped over to my Groups tab. So as I mentioned, you can actually go in and create custom groups. So I actually created, I recently created a EngageBridge demo group. So this just for users to opt into a demo of the mobile app. I assigned a keyword here. Actually, let me jump back and I'll just go through the create group process very quickly. I'll say this is the Nixle webinar group. This is unique to my demo account. So I can add a description. I can determine, is this a subgroup to an existing group, or is this a top level group? So this will be a parent group. And this is where I can enter my keyword. So again, this is the keyword that you would go to your residents with and ask them to opt in with. So let's say, well, actually, I'll take a common keyword so you can see this SMS keyword is taken. Right. So as you're typing in your keyword, we will give you that feedback that, hey, this keyword is already in use. So let's say NX webinar. This keyword is available. So I can create this group. You'll see it's been entered here. Now, again, if you have your mobile phones handy, you can actually text NX webinar to 888-777. All right, so that would look like, let me jump back here. That would look like this, NX webinar. If anyone would like to try this, NX webinar, send it to 888-777, and you will be able to opt into this group. Right, so again, the call to action to your residents, we like to work with agencies to make sure that you get as many opt-ins as possible. So a lot of best practices that we can send your way. But we want to make sure that you're successful, right? So if you do have a big event coming up, we would encourage you to reach out to us ahead of time. We'll help you come up with a plan, some tactics to get people to opt in. And then I think, lastly, I think we're close to running out of time. I did want to touch on EngageBridge. So again, this is our mobile publishing app. And I'm going to log in. And this login, so this is running in beta right now. This is connected to a few test systems. So processes such as the login process does take a little longer than expected. So you'll see here that the app is thinking as it's kind of crunching my credentials, saying, okay, this user has access to how many accounts? Okay. So the testing system does take a little longer during this process. So I'm going to let this load. But once it does, yeah.
Quick question, actually, that's related to what you're talking about. One of our customers that's online, Patrick Moore, he wanted to know what's the difference between ManageBridge and EngageBridge.
So EngageBridge is specifically for Nixle users. ManageBridge is for users who are using the Everbridge system. So again, EngageBridge is just for users who are kind of sending messages out through the Nixle system. So once I'm in here, you'll see that I'm kind of dropped into this account, but I can actually switch agencies. So I just went to Settings, Switch Agencies, and I'm actually going to go down to the agency that I was just showing on the web app. So Production Demo. So I've now jumped over to Production Demo, and you'll notice here, let's talk about kind of the high-level functionality. You can send public messages, you can send private messages, and you have some settings. So again, this app is really optimized to send notifications directly from your phone while you're in the field. So from a public messaging standpoint, you have two options. You have an advanced message option or a quick message option. Now let's start with quick message. I can select quick message, and very easily I can send a text message as a medium priority message to my Nixle wire. Right? So we looked at the most common permutation of Nixle messages, and by far this is it. Right? So we wanted to make it very easy for you as the publisher to send an SMS to this group of users with a click of a button. Right? So that's really what this quick message option allows you to do. Now, if I was to select advanced message, I have a few more options. I can change the priority of the message, and you'll notice that if I do that, SMS and email is required, or maybe I want to do advisory. And you'll notice here that the voice option is not activated because the account that I'm using does not have voice activated. So I'll actually jump over to an account that does have voice activated. You can see the difference. Or I can select community. All right, so let's say I want to send a SMS and an email. Go next. Say test message. Oops.
And Scott, while you're doing that, just to let everyone know, if you aren't able to stay on any longer, we will send out the recording, but we will be going for a couple more minutes to let Scott go through the demo and do Q&A. So anyone who wants to stay on, feel free to, and anyone who can't, we will send out the recording.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I just entered my email message. Moving forward, I'm going to actually select a group. So Nixle webinar. So this is the group we just set up. I'm going to target this group. Now I proceeded to my preview page so I can look over the contents of my message, and I can press send, and I get a confirmation message that my message was sent successfully. So very quickly, and the last thing I'll touch on is let's talk about if you're interested and you have the need for voice messaging. I'm going to go to my Nixle live dial demo. I'm going to say public message, advanced message, right, because I want to be able to enter that voice message. So maybe I just want to send a voice message. I can select voice. I can proceed to the next stage. It's going to ask me permission to access my microphone, so you can record your voice message directly from your phone. So let's say I'm recording this message. The text stop. I can proceed. Now I can target a particular group, or I can target a geographic region and everybody that's in that region. So let's do geo-targeting. So let's say, now again, I have an additional option here. I can target by custom area. So I can actually pull up an area. So this is the area that my demo account has access to. I can zoom in, and actually just by touching the screen, I can drop pins on the area that I want to target. All right, so very powerful geo-targeting system. Now I can preview this message. I can play it back here. It's going to take a little while to compile the preview. And then from here, I can send this message out. Right, so again, very, very easy to send this message directly from this app. And with that, Mike, I think might be a good time to open it up for questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. So we got quite a few questions that have come in, so we will address as many as possible. Again, we will be sending out the recording, so if you do have to jump, don't worry. If you want to submit your question and jump, you will get the recording sent to you later today or tomorrow. And as a reminder, you can submit your questions in the GoToWebinar panel by clicking on the questions drop-down and submitting your question to all panelists. So without further ado, the first question that came in, or actually it's a frequent, we have a couple of requests for this one, Scott. I think you answered it, but you might want to repeat it. It's they want to know when the EngageBridge app will be available, because we have a couple questions asking how do you download, where do you download it, and where is it in the Google Store. So I'll leave that to you.
Sure. So we are in beta right now. We do have a group of beta users. If there are any existing Nixle customers interested in being part of that beta, I would encourage you to please reach out to your AE, and we can try and get you in the program. but we will be releasing the first version July 21st, and that will be for iOS only, unfortunately. I know Android equally, if not more important. Obviously, a lot of Android users in the state and local government space, but we wanted to get the iOS app right first, and then we will be rolling out Android later this year. So iOS July 21st, Android later this year.
Okay. Scott, the next question is from Jeremy Profit. He wants to know, when people opt in via text, is there an easy way to add them to email as well?
There actually is. If you text in your zip code, we know your phone number. And then if a user goes to Nixle.com, they can actually complete their registration. All they have to do is, oops, sorry, getting a little feedback there. All they have to do is text password to 888-777, and then once they have their mobile number and their password, they can actually log into Nixle and indicate that they want to receive email messages. Yep, so once they opt in via SMS, they can go complete their profile on Nixle.com.
Awesome. Scott, the next question is, Ruben wants to know, will EngageBridge be available to freemium users, or is it only for paid users?
It will only be for Engage and Nixle 360 users.
Okay, thank you. The next question, sorry everyone, I'm trying to get as many as we can. The next one is, Scott, you talked about residents being able to communicate back and forth with law enforcement or public safety when they're submitting these messages. Can residents submit unsolicited tips?
They can. They can. So tipping is not a feature I dove into today, but residents absolutely have the ability to send in unsolicited tips. So two types of tips that residents can send in. One way is a tip directly related to one of your messages, which is a very powerful feature. So let's say you're trying to get information on a wanted suspect, you have a mugshot, you want people to reply back with any information. You can send that message out, residents can reply with an anonymous tip, and we will link their tip with that message so you know what message that tip was sent in regards to. Residents can also, we have a web form where they can just unsolicited send a message in. And then we have a few SMS ways for them to send those tips in as well. So short answer is yes, unsolicited anonymous tipping is supported.
Okay. So the last question, Scott, that we have is from Joe. He's actually an Everbridge user, but has a couple agencies in his county that are looking that are using Nixle. He wants to know, if the county uses Everbridge, meaning him, is there a way for him to access opt-ins for his countywide agency from the local law enforcement Nixle agencies?
Yes, there are some ways for us to configure your account so that essentially your Everbridge org is connected to your Nixle police org. And then if that configuration occurs, then you would both have access to the same keywords, the same group of users. The difference is your local PD would be sending the messages through Nixle, and you could continue using Everbridge. So that is something we've done in the past, and we're certainly happy to kind of work with you. Our implementation team is great in just kind of uncovering and figuring out how you want that implementation to work, but that exact scenario is supported currently.
Awesome. And we actually got one more question that I think will be a quick one for you, Scott, so I'll just ask it. It's from Eugene Kramer. He wants to know the cost of the app. He wants to know, is there a cost associated with the app?
There's no additional cost aside from the cost of using Engage or 360. So Engage is our the most popular plan that we offer, and then 360 adds in multiple additional layers. So you do have voice messaging, you do have the ability to target custom polygons. So those two packages will include the ability to use EngageBridge.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott. So we're about 10 minutes over. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to thank Scott Benoit for another great presentation and demonstration of the Nixle solution. For those of you who we couldn't get to their questions or have additional questions, we will have your account managers or product specialists follow up with you if you're not a customer. Feel free to reach out to us at marketing@everbridge.com. And if you'd like to check out any of our webinars, you can do so by going to everbridge.com and go under our resources tab. And additionally, lastly, this webinar will be sent to you, the recording and the slides, within either today or tomorrow. And lastly, thanks again, Scott, and thank you for everyone joining us today. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.